Okay, tonight I'd like to segue and transition from last week, which was very much talking about the hashkafa, the ideas, the philosophical ideas behind the Yom Tov of Pesach. And we would like to get tonight moving ourselves into the actual Haggadah itself, which is the main mitzvah that we have of the evening, is the reading and the telling over the Haggadah. And it's important to note, okay, again, we'll ask anyone that's not muted to try to mute themselves. It's important to note that we don't have any other Yom Tov in the entire year where HaKadosh Baruch has given us a whole book that we're supposed to read on the night of the Yom Tov. And here in Chutz La'aretz, it's not just one night, but 2 nights. There's an entire book that Hashem has given us, that He wants us to be engaged with, and He wants us to be able to read and to learn and to share with our families. And the question is, what is so unique about the Yom Tov of Pesach that, unlike any other Yom Tov, requires that you must read the Haggadah, you must be engaged in the story, you must tell over the miracles, you must be totally involved with the stories of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt. Not like Sukkot, not like Shavuos, not on Chanukah, not on Purim, no other Yom Tov in the entire year. Now the Shulchan Aruch writes the following words: Chayev Adam la'asek b'ilchos Pesach. A person is obligated to be involved in the learning of the laws of Pesach, Yetzias Mitzrayim, and also in the Exodus from Egypt, Ulesaper banisim baniflois, and they have to tell over the miracles and the wonders that Hashem did to our forefathers in Egypt, and until they actually fall asleep at night. Which means if you made it till the end of the Seder and the meal is over and you're still awake, you're obligated to stay up as long as it takes till your eyes will close and you forget that you should say over all of the nisim and niflais, all the signs and the wonders and the miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for us on the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt. And we're going to see right now that in some of the main Rishonim, some of the main commentators that we have, herein lies the secret to the entire night of Pesach, and herein lies the secret of why it is that we have to tell over the whole story of the Exodus in the magnificent way in which the Haggadah does. So if you want to know where the word Haggadah itself comes from, it comes from a pasuk, from a verse that we have in the Torah. The Torah is speaking over there about when the Jewish people are going to leave Egypt, when we're going to recount the tale. It says, "V'higadeta lebincha b'yomahu leimor," when you will tell over to your child on that day, saying, "Ba'avur ze asa Hashem li b'tzeisim mitzrayim." Because of this, says Rashi, in order that I should fulfill the mitzvahs of Pesach, Matzah, and Maror, that's why Hashem made all of these miracles and these signs and wonders for me. So Haggadah is a language of telling over. There's a special mitzvah that we have on the night of the Seder to tell over all of the miracles that Hashem did for us when we left Egypt. Now we'll see, it's not only when we leave Egypt. Of course, that's the main thing, but as a person will begin to look into their lives and they'll begin to examine where they're holding today and where they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, a person will begin to realize that everybody has their own Haggadah, everybody has their own book that they are writing, and everybody has miracles that are above and beyond what we would call the norm, the regular. And if a person becomes sensitive and understanding of those things, then a person will be living with the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim, of the Exodus, all of the days of their life. But here in this verse, we see very simply that there's a mitzvah v'higadeta lebincha, to tell over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that story is not just. So the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim is that a person is going to be able to expound one verse after the other, one moment after the other, in the telling over the Haggadah, the miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made for the Jewish people. Now let's see the words of the Rambam. The Rambam explains this mitzvah the following way. Mitzvah's essay shal Torah. It is a positive commandment that the Torah gives us. L'saper b'nisim v'niflais, to tell over the miracles and the wonders shenasu l'aveiseinu b'Mitzrayim, that Hashem did for our forefathers in Egypt. B'leil chamisha asar b'Nisan, on the night of the 15th of Nisan, the first night of Pesach. V'yafal b'yishein lo ben, even if a person doesn't have a son. Let's say that a person is sitting there all by themselves. And this could happen this year. Coronavirus has changed the entire way in which we are going to celebrate our Seder. Imagine a person is quarantined and they're all by themselves. And they can't be with family, they can't be with children, they can't be with friends. Nobody. They're all by themselves sitting in their house. Do they have a mitzvah to tell over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim? Says the Rambam, yes. Even though that it says you have a mitzvah to tell it over to your son, it doesn't mean only your son. What if you only have daughters? What if your person doesn't have children? It means that no matter what, a person has a mitzvah to tell it over, even if the only person they're saying it over to is themselves, because we need the inspiration, we need the elevation, we need to be inspired by the tremendous miracles that Hashem did. Now, afilu chachamim gedolim, even if you would be one of the greatest sages in the generation, you were the wisest of all men, you knew all of the Torah on your fingertips, you knew every midrash, you knew every word of Chazal, you go to the store, there's 100 Haggadahs on the shelf, you knew them all. Says the Rambam, Chayovim l'saper b'Yetzias Mitzrayim, a person has an obligation to tell over the stories of Yetzias Mitzrayim, of the Exodus from Egypt. V'kol, says the Rambam, v'kol hamarich b'dvarim she'iru, anyone who expounds upon the stories and the events which took place for the Jewish people, v'shahayu harezem meshubach, says the Rambam, his famous words, that is a person that is praiseworthy because they know how to extend the telling over of the tremendous miracles that Hashem made on our behalf. So what do we see in the words of the Rambam? Very simply, you have a positive commandment that the Torah gives us. When you are telling over the Haggadah, you are fulfilling a command that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. Tell over the nisim v'niflois, the miracles, the signs and the wonders that Hashem did for our forefathers when we were leaving Egypt. Now, one of the questions that we have to address is the following. Last week we mentioned that there is a mitzvah that we have every single day, and not only every single day, but it comes up very often in our observance, and that is Zecher Liyetzias Mitzrayim. We have a command to remind ourselves and to remember and to recall the miracles which took place to remember what took place in the Exodus from Egypt. Now, it doesn't speak about over there, you have to remember all of the miracles, you have to talk about the wonders, you have to expound upon it till the late hours of the morning.
Mike?
It doesn't say that. It says that a person has an obligation that they just have to remind themselves about Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus. So this mitzvah of telling over the Haggadah is the same mitzvah as remembering the Exodus from Egypt like we have every day? Or is there something new? Is there something that we're adding on the night of the Seder that you don't fulfill any other time of the year? Now, so far the Rambam has explained to us what is that new information, what is that new slice of the mitzvah that it is, and that is that a person has an obligation to expound upon the miracles. Because if a person wants to be able to appreciate all the things that Hashem did, if they want to be able to appreciate that we are sitting here today and we are surviving a nation that has traversed all of the generations and all the exiles and all the countries, but we're still here. If a person wants to be able to appreciate that the Jewish people were taken out of Egypt in such magnificent and miraculous ways, they must begin to expound the best that they possibly can upon the miracles, which means the only way to expound upon them is you have to learn about them. We're not making up miracles over here. All of the miracles that we have on the night of the Seder are not things that we're inventing in our mind. These are miracles that are documented in the Torah, that Chazal, that our sages teach us. These are miracles that we find in our holy books. So the Sefer HaChinuch, one of the other great Rishonim, one of the other great commentators, which is a very interesting book in and of itself. The Sefer HaChinuch is an unknown author. And it was found as a book that was written from a father to his son who became a bar mitzvah boy. And the gift that he wanted to give to his son was not a bicycle, it wasn't a Nintendo Switch, it wasn't a nice suit. That's not what he was giving over to his father, to his son. He wanted to give his son a book that would teach him how to be a Jew. So he wrote a book called Sefer HaChinuch. So the Sefer HaChinuch writes the following words, and he says like this. He says, we have to tell over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, like we said. Kol echad kefi tzachais l'shoinai. Everybody should use the speech that they are able to say it over in. However, the best way you can tell it over, the best storyteller, the best insights, the best divrei Torah, the best that you can do, that's what we're obligated to. And we have to praise and give thanks to Hashem on all of the miracles that God did for us while we were there in Mitzrayim. Like it says in the pasuk, in the verse that we quoted, "V'yigadata lebincha," tell it over to your children. Now, says the Sefer HaChinuch, the following: "V'inyan ha-mitzvah." What is this mitzvah really all about? Sheyizkor anisim v'inyonim. We have to remind ourselves of the miracles and the events which took place. She'iru la'aveisenu b'yetzias Mitzrayim, that happened to our forefathers in Egypt. Afilu beinoi lebein atzmo, even if you're all by yourself, like we said, you're in a corona quarantine. You don't have your children, you don't have your grandchildren, you don't have anybody else around you except for yourself. You still have an obligation to tell it over. Chayev lahoitzi advarim b'piv. You have to say the words out of your mouth. Why? Kedei sheyisoirer libay b'davar. In order that you will arouse and you will inspire and you will excite yourself in your heart in these matters. Ki b'dibor yisoirer halev. Says the Sefer HaChinuch, when you speak, when you say things out loud, it awakens that which is in your heart. What is inside of your heart? The Michtam Eliyahu of Dessler writes that the leiv, the heart of a person, is a cavern. It's a chamber. And inside that chamber, you're going to fill it up with whatever you want to put inside of there. It is, as the Mefarshim tell us, it's like the Mishkan of the Neshama. It's the place where the Neshama, where the soul is going to dwell. And if you do the right job on the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the night of the Seder, so what is going to be the result? The result is that you are going to bring into your heart, you're going to bring inside of there, through the words that you said, you're going to waken up your heart to recognize all the miracles and the signs and the wonders and the powerful things that Hashem did on our behalf. The night of the Seder is for us to recognize how much Hashem loves the Jewish people. How do we know that He loves us? Look at all of the miracles that He did on our behalf. Look at how He rescued us from the hands of our enemies. Look how He made 10 makkos, 10 plagues in which He manipulated nature in such a way that no other being in the world could do such a thing. Even the astrologers And the magicians of the Egyptians, they were limited in what they were able to imitate because they said, Zu etzbe Elokim, this is the finger of God. We cannot imitate what he does. How do we know that Hashem loves us so much? Look how he cares for his flock. Look how he took us through the splitting of the sea. When he split the sea, what did he do for us? It wasn't just one pathway. It was 12 pathways. Each tribe walked in their own path, and there were the walls were clear, and they could see next door to each other to see that everybody else went along with them. The floor was dry. There was water dripping down for them to be able to drink, fruits for them to be able to eat. There was milk for the babies to be able to nurse from, everything that they needed. The night of the Seder, the night of Passover, the night of Pesach is a night that if a person will use their peh, that's what it means. Pesach is peh, the mouth, sach, that talks. That's the whole night. The Jewish people have no problem talking, that's for sure. But on the night of the Seder, we talk even more than we usually talk. But we have to know what we're talking about. We're talking about the Nisim, the Nifla'is. We're talking about the tremendous signs and wonders that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for the Jewish people. Because if your Pesach, if your mouth talks, and it speaks about the right things, and it gets into it, deep into it, again, tzachais l'shoina, with the best language that you could possibly use, it is ma'orer the lev, it wakens up your heart. And you emerge from the night of the Seder, you're a different person. You walked into the Seder, well, who knows what we're going to look like in another 3 weeks. Grumpy and tired, cooped up in the house, frazzled, stressed out beyond belief. We couldn't even get everything we wanted in the store. We couldn't toivel all the dishes that we needed because all the mikvahs are closed. We couldn't cook all the food that we usually cook. We didn't get all the matzah that we normally enjoy eating because they didn't deliver everything from Israel. And all the bakeries, and even in New York, maybe didn't bake everything the way they usually do. And the kids are driving us crazy, and it's noisy, and it's cooped up, and all the different things going on. Who imagine what we're going to look like in 3 weeks, the night of the Seder? But if a person on the night of the Seder is a Pesach, they are a mouth that is talking throughout the evening. We're not talking about the political situation, and we're not talking about who's going to be the next president, and we're not talking about what's going to be with our job after Pesach. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the miracles that Hashem did for the Jewish people when we were in Egypt, and when he took us out with the Yad HaChazaka, with the outstretched arm and his might. Why? Because the more that we talk about it, and the more that we realize how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu truly loves Klal Yisrael, how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinks about us and maneuvers our life in the most wonderful and the most amazing of ways, it allows us to open up our hearts to so much appreciation, so much awareness, so much insight and feeling of the love that Hashem has for us, that our heart we become a different person altogether. So if you walk away from the Seder, the same person that you were when you walked into the Seder, or you walk out of the Seder even worse than when you got into the Seder. It's so long and there's so many words, and when are we going to eat? Listen, you're going to be on your own time this year. You can run the Seder however you want. You don't have to worry about your son-in-law does like this, or your son does like that, or your brother does like this, or the uncle does like that. You don't have to worry about any of that. You're going to have the Seder to yourself. And you can make the Seder any way that you want. And how are you going to make it? Says the Sefer HaChinuch, I'll tell you how to make it. Be a Pesach. Be a mouth that talks, in order that a person is able to open up their hearts and become a Jew that is filled with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. To become a Jew that is filled with appreciation. To become a Jew that is filled with an understanding of how the nature of the history of the Jewish people runs itself year after year, nation after nation, how it works itself out. But that's up to us. Says all of our Meforshim over here, and that is, if a person will do the job in the right way on the night of the Seder, and they will allow the words that they say to be ma'orah, to wake themselves up, they'll reach it. And that's why it says in the Shulchan Aruch over here that even after a long Seder, a long night, 4 cups of wine, person a little bit tipsy, they're a little bit drunk, it's been a long day, it's been a long few weeks, we're cooped up inside the house, we have all the kids around, or we're all by ourselves, and it's hard, it's not easy. Says the Shulchan Aruch, still you have a mitzvah to stay up until your eyes actually close, until you fall asleep, and the last words that are on your lips are miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's why in the Haggadah, as we're going to see, like the Rambam says, Kol amarbe b'sipa Yetzias Mitzrayim, the more that a person tells over the miracles of the Exodus from Egypt, Harei ze meshubach. What do those words mean? Harei ze, behold ze, this one is meshubach, is praiseworthy. What is the praiseworthy thing that you said over so many words? That is praiseworthy. But I always thought that the understanding of the Rambam is, Harei ze, behold, this one, this person, who tells over the words of the miracles and the wonders and the signs and the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for Klal Yisrael. And his marbe, he increases and he tells over more. He learns deeper into the understanding. He sees another commentary. He sees another midrash, another piece of Gemara, another idea. So that person becomes meshubach. They become not inflated, but they become elevated. They become meshubach. They become themselves praiseworthy. They become a different person. Shevach is always the best. You could have regular, and then you could have the shevach, you could have the best. You become the best Jew you could possibly be on the night of the Seder. Why? Because on the night of the Seder, we are dedicating hours, literally hours of our life, sitting around the table, reading through the words of the Haggadah, and telling over all the miracles and the wonders that Hashem did. Now, think about Klal Yisrael at that time. At that time, Klal Yisrael was already 100 years, 200 years they were in slavery. 200 years they were under the rule of Paro. 200 years they were cut off from their country, from the land of Israel. 200 years they forgot about Hashem, and they certainly thought that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgot about them. But in an instant, Hashem turned everything around for the Jewish people, which means that in fact, Hashem never forgets about us. Hashem never stops thinking about us. Hashem never stops looking at us. Hashem always is waiting to be able to make more nisim and niflais, wonders and signs on our behalf, if only we recognize him. On the night of the Seder, a person is able to, through their speech, through the koyach hadibra. Why is speech such a powerful thing? Onkelos writes in the creation of man that what does it mean that he is a nefesh chaya, that man is a living soul? Says the Onkelos says that we are a ruach memala. We have the power to be able to speak. The thing that separates mankind from all of the other creatures that there are in the world is that we have the power to speak and communicate such deep and profound thoughts that no other animal in the world is able to do. You might have a porpoise. They say that dolphins are very smart animals, and they can speak with their squeaking sounds that they have, and their beeping and their chirping that they do, but they cannot say over complicated, articulate words to describe the way that they are feeling. The other animals grunt and they groan and they roar and they bark and they chirp and they make all different noises. And even if they communicate with each other, they can never ever express the deepest feelings that are coming from the recesses of their soul. Only a human being can do that. And Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, who are the living, supposed to be the living paradigm of the Tselem Elokim, of being created in the godly image, where we are trying to emulate the ways of Hashem in everything and so much that we do, so that our speech, especially which is on the night of the Seder, even if we read it and we don't understand fully, but it's Lashon HaKodesh, it's the holy tongue of Hebrew, which is what Hashem created the world with. And even if we can't do the Hebrew, but we explain the ideas in the language that we are most comfortable with, whether it be English or Russian or Farsi or anything else that is out there, a person begins to express the beauty that is inside of their neshama, which is the godliness that resides inside each and every one of us. And therefore the mouth, the power of speech, is so mighty and it is so great that the Pesach, the mouth that opens and talks and keeps going the whole night long, the best that you can do, where we are constantly trying to express our gratitude to Hashem by saying over the miracles, the signs and the wonders, that says the Sefer HaChinuch, that is ma'orer the lev, it wakens up the deep feelings and gratitude that you have in your heart of what it means to be a Jew. And that's our task. We're going to start, Be'ez Hashem, this up and coming week and next week, and I assume by the end of next week, everybody will be in full mode of Pesach cleaning, getting ready. But we are going to spend our time going through the Haggadah piece by piece, that we should understand what we have to talk about on the night of the Seder. I just want to leave you with one idea before we part till tomorrow. We don't find by any other Yom Tiv that there's such a thing called a Seder. We don't find the Haggadah, and we don't find the Seder where there's all these acts that we're going to have to do, drink and lean and eat and this and more, say more things, do more things. We don't find it by any other Yom Tiv. Every other Yom Tiv, there's a mitzvah, you do the mitzvah, you fulfill the obligation. Every other Yom Tiv, you insert something into your prayers, you connect it to that Yom Tiv. Every other Yom Tiv, there are different things that we do to remind us of what the glory of that Yom Tiv is. But once you do it, you're finished. You got the message, you got the point. But Hashem said the night of the Seder, the night of Pesach, you must sit for hours, literally hours, and you have to go through the Haggadah, and the Haggadah itself is part of the Seder, part of the order of the night that we're going to have. And we have that long list at the beginning of the Haggadah, which we sing and we get ourselves ready for the night which is ahead of us. Why does there have to be a Seder on the night of Pesach, like we have no other night? Let's remember that Pesach is the night that the Jewish people emerged as a nation. It's the night that we truly went free. It's the night that the end of the long exile in Egypt of 210 years of labor and servitude and bondage and heartache and challenges and a lot of misery, it's the end of that whole experience. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, now the time has come, you're going into Geula, into redemption, you're going to go free. If we would look back on the previous 210 years of the slavery of Egypt, would anybody ever have believed that there was rhyme and reason to everything that Hashem was doing? Would you have believed that when the Egyptians were literally taking Jewish babies and throwing them into the river, there was a rhyme and reason, there was a purpose behind that? When you would see the Jews working their back-breaking labor and they ran out of enough material to make a brick and there was a hole in one of the pyramids or one of the buildings that they were building, the Egyptians would come, the ruthless, and they would take little Jewish infants and they would stick them into the walls to fill up the holes and the space. There's Seder to that, there's order to that. It makes any sense? The fact that the Jewish people in the beginning, as we spoke about last week, they had to leave the comforts of their homeland of Eretz Yisrael and eventually come down to Egypt and get stuck there and assimilate there and live a life where they were persecuted. Does it make any sense? Can you see any order? Do things fall into place? At the time that we were going through all of the suffering, venture to say most people did not see the rhyme nor the reason or the hand of Hashem that was working everything behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, when Hashem says, now the time has come, you are going into freedom, you are leaving behind the misery of Egypt, you're leaving behind the slavery, you're going to become Oivdei Hashem, free people to serve Hashem, then everything begins to fall into place, and we realize, had it not been for the servitude, had it not been for the hardships, had it not been for the challenges, had it not been for everything we went through, there would be no Geula, there would be no redemption of the Jewish people. The ninth of the 2 nights that we have in Chutz La'aretz outside the land of Israel, which are 2 nights of Seder, 2 nights to perform to the best of our abilities, to extol the praises and expound upon all the miracles that Hashem did. It's to remind us there is a Seder, there is an order to everything that happens in our lives. Nothing happens by chance and nothing happens by mistake. As Rabbi Akiva was wont to say, Koma the Ovid Rachmano Letav Ovid. Everything that Hashem does is for the good, and it has a purpose, and there's a plan. On the night of Pesach, where we are telling over the miracles and the signs and the wonders, and as we'll learn in the up and coming days, but you don't start with the signs and wonders. Maschil begenus, you have to start with the lowliness of the Jewish people. You have to start with our slavery. You have to start with our mistakes. You have to start that we were a nation that was oppressed. Then we get to the miracles. Why? Because all of that is part of the miracles that Hashem wrought on our behalf, which means our life has order and our life has rhyme and reason. And the only way that we get to tell Hashem how grateful we are, and we sit up till the wee hours of the morning till sleep overtakes our eyes and we can't talk any longer, but we stop talking with the words of miracles on our lips, is because we realize there is Seder, there is order to everything that Hashem does. And let that be a tremendous chizuk, a tremendous inspiration for us who are living in some of the most unprecedented historical times that the world has ever seen before. And if you look around and we hear the stories on the news day after day, the people that are succumbing, Rahman al-Islam, to this terrible virus, to the people that have contracted it, people that we know about, that we don't know about, the world being shut down, businesses closing, people, God forbid, are going to be losing who knows how much. And we begin to think, is there a reason why all this is happening? Is there an order to this? Is there a purpose? Does HaKadosh Baruch Hu know what he's doing? Is he even paying attention right now to this little tiny virus that's destroying the world? And the answer is, of course. We might not be privy to know exactly why, but of course, guaranteed, there is a rhyme and there is a reason. And just like every part in the story of our slavery was what was pushing us and thrusting us towards the ultimate redemption, a Jew has to believe that everything that is happening in the world right now is also thrusting us towards the ultimate redemption, because according to our great rabbis, we're getting closer and closer and closer every single day to the coming of Mashiach, because it can't go on much more the way that it is. So as we embark upon the glorious Haggadah, which is perhaps one of the most famous works in all of Jewish history, perhaps about 1800, 2000 years ago, it was written and it's been studied and it's been learned, and I think it's the book that has the most commentaries around that you could find. I myself have 2 shelves in my house that are just filled with commentaries on the Haggadah, and there's new ones that are coming out every year. You would have thought everything was said already, but no. There's something so real and so engaging that everybody's neshama is able to connect to the beautiful words that are inside the Haggadah. And however sensitive you'll be to these words and to the messages, that's how much you'll be machadish, that's how much you'll be able to introduce and to bring into this world this year with your insights and your knowledge and your understanding. So that we have to keep in mind. The night of the Seder, mitzvahs essay deraisa, says the Rambam, you're fulfilling a positive commandment that is a biblical command that Hashem has given us. And the real command is tell over the miracles and the signs and the wonders that Hashem did for us. Because if you do that with this beautiful mouth that Hashem is giving you to speak in the right way, what are you going to accomplish? You will be ma'orer your leiv, you will awaken and you will arouse your heart to recognize how wonderful it is to be a part of Klal Yisrael. And if we emerge after the hours of the Seder, even just a little bit more, feeling proud and feeling good to be a Jew, and seeing our glorious past and knowing that we have a glorious future that is awaiting us, then we truly will have accomplished miraculous things on the night of the Seder. That's our introduction. Starting tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to begin going into the Haggadah itself. I recommend that everybody who has Haggadah at home, Hebrew, English, both, whatever language is best for you, the homework, please bring your Haggadah to class tomorrow, and it'll make it easier for you to be able to see the words inside. And you can take notes if you want. You're allowed to write inside the Haggadah. You can take notes. If you have your own ideas, pen them down and write them down, and you'll share them by your very special Seder that each and every one of us are going to have this year, Be'ez Hashem. Have a wonderful night. We look forward to continuing our learning of the Haggadah tomorrow. All the best.